Hi, I'm Tiffany Domena. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my website is howtoentrepreneur.org, and today we'll be talking with Pribyl from Stopping Scams about what is the best online business model. He's had quite a bit of experience with different business models, and so I'm really excited to ask him lots of questions to see what he thinks about what's the best business model, what's the best to start with, what are the pros and cons, and lots of other questions about business online. So if you're interested in that, then this interview will be very interesting for you. So first, let's start out with your background, Ian. When did you start in business? How long have you been in business?
Oh man. Fortunately and unfortunately, I was one of those people that I think was just born with like entrepreneurialism in my bones. There are stories of me dating back to when I was a little boy, like 6 or 7 years old, having like entrepreneurial ideas. I started my first business when I was like my first legit business where, I like sold a product, not online, but I was 12 years old. And It was doing what's known as pin turning. It's a form of wood turning where you make like handmade pins. So you turn wood on a lathe and you make these handcrafted pins, as in like writing utensils, right? And pins,
Oh,
pencils,
wow.
letter openers.
I've
My
never heard of
dad,
that.
well, and most people, like I have a friend, an internet marketing friend to this day that gives me a hard time when I mention pin turning because he hears pin turning and he thinks of like the people that like twirl pins on their fingers.
Uh-huh.
That's not what pin turning is. But anyways, nobody really needs to know what pin turning is. But it was, I'd say my cost of goods were probably like $4 or $5 for most of those pins, and I was selling them for 20 to 25. I ran that
Wow.
for several years, all the way up, basically till I left San Antonio, where I was raised, for Austin to go to the University of Texas. And that's when I kind of sold off because, moving into an apartment, I didn't have room for a wood shop,
Yeah.
so I sold it all off. But at that point, I was into the nicer pins that were, like, uh, $20, $30 cost of goods. And, they ran up to, I would sell them for 100 or 120. So it was my
Wow.
first ever business. I ran it for several years, and it overlapped with me getting into internet marketing. Yeah, that was it. I got into internet marketing for whatever reason, specifically when I was about 15, lightly, and really started studying it when I was 16. And yeah, that's how
So,
I ended up diving in.
wow. So what online business models have you run before?
Oh man, it's probably a briefer list to say what ones have I not run before. I originally cut my teeth on SEO and content marketing. Um,
Okay.
of course, as any like authority website owner, if you want to make the big bucks, you really have to start to tune into so many other skill sets, and that's when a lot of those got developed. And of course, that's conversion optimization, that's email marketing, that's studying all forms of persuasion, copywriting, all that kind of stuff. And I've also, in more recent years, within the past 4 or 5 years, gotten a lot bigger into like e-commerce, pay-per-click marketing, advertising. That's across most of my experience has been on Facebook. A lot of it has also been on Google and native ads, a handful of native ads as well. And Also recently, a few months ago, released my first book. So that's been a journey as well.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that's out on, getting that, out on Kindle, and then getting it converted to a really good looking paperback, and then also getting a really good audiobook done. Before, Kindle was kind of one of my blind spots, and although it's not one of my primary focuses for me, that's been more of a passion project to kind of get knowledge out there in a form that's really accessible to people.
Uh-huh.
It's still been, I've run with my team members, we've run some Amazon ads, pay-per-click ads, stuff like that. Everything from drop shipping and e-commerce to, kind of manufacturing our own goods, sourcing our own goods, etc. All that stuff has been, it's been a long road. It's been literally half my life now. So,
Wow.
so yeah.
would you say you spent the most time in affiliate marketing, or did you spend the most time in e-commerce, or where do you think you kind of spent the most time in
Definitely
all
the
that
most time has
business?
been focused on the SEO affiliate marketing side, for
Okay.
sure. I did that for many, 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 many years before I really started venturing out. I mean, I had my little tests, my little, you know, things that I tried here and there, but they didn't, they didn't, it didn't go very well for the first few years. So I was pretty defeating. And then I feel like every time I tried it, I would get a little bit more reserved and a little bit more scared to like
Okay.
do more, and like every time it would take me longer and longer to dive back into it because it was like, you've done this before, you've done this
Yeah.
before 2 times, you've done this before 3 times, and it's
Yeah.
never ever worked.
Yeah.
So yeah, but definitely the vast majority of my time has been on content marketing, SEO, and affiliate marketing through authority sites.
Okay, cool. So I think that's the perfect segue because you said you had quite a few failures that
Oh
you or
man.
learning lessons. So did that, well, based on what you said, it probably did impact your confidence. Did that cause confidence issues? Did you have confidence issues before you started the business? How did you really build that so that you can jump into entrepreneurship?
I probably should have. I probably should have had a lot more confidence issues than I've had in this industry. Probably would have leveled me out a lot more. But I would say, I think this is best encapsulated by I have an old college professor who was one of my favorite professors, awesome professor, and he ended up being kind of a mentor of mine. And uh, one of the things he told me a couple years after I graduated, I still see him every couple of months for coffee, and uh,
Very
and
cool.
it's awesome. And because he's like, he's a good mentor to have. He's very highly respected. He's a tenured professor at the University of Texas in one of their top programs. So, it's good insight to have. And he told me
Yeah.
a couple years after I graduated, he said, Ian, your levels of self-efficacy are like superhuman. My ability to just like, when I have an idea, I won't even say it's an ability. For many years, it was more of a weakness than anything because it just caused me to like get consumed by shiny object syndrome every 6 months, because I was always like, oh, I'm gonna launch a new business idea. It's going to go super well. And it like never
Yeah.
did, probably less than 10% of the time did it actually go super well. So I would say, especially, I mean, I probably went through that cycle for a good 10 years, just launching,
Wow.
so many new business ideas. And I'd say towards the end of those 10 years when it was like, it was starting to be like, wow, this is a serious like issue. Am I gonna spend,
Like
am
an
I gonna,
addiction.
yeah, am I gonna spend the rest of my life just, always trying for more and just always ending up at the same level or, slightly right around the same level anyways, maybe minimal gains, or
Yeah.
am I actually going to like actually, hit a home run someday?
Yeah.
And so towards the end, definitely a fair amount of depression, definitely a fair amount of confidence issues, but along the way, not so much. And fortunately, um, a lot of that self-doubt that a lot of people have to face when they're getting into internet marketing
Uh-huh.
and starting an internet business. Fortunately, I didn't, just by my biological wiring, I didn't struggle with much of that at all.
Did you so in terms of generating business ideas, which business model did you start with? You did the pins, but then when you got in business online, did you start with the pins, or how did you start on
No, that was SEO was definitely where I started, just content creation and SEO.
that? Okay.
I also did a really fair amount of YouTube marketing when I was sitting for this conversation. When I was first getting started, I did that definitely helped me a lot. I did, like an affiliate site slash like journal basically too, like a YouTube diary of kind of like following that progress and going through all of that. So
Oh, so kind of like Pat Flynn's niche site duels, like how he used to
yeah,
do it.
except except not remotely as big scale, and not remotely as successful. I mean, I was 19 years old and making 2 or 3 grand a month. I was thrilled. We're not talking
Okay, that's
Pat
not
Flynn
bad.
6 figure a month, levels of
Yeah.
income, but yeah, certainly it was fortunately what just caught, but I mean, but I say that's 19 years old. I started studying at 16 years old, so obviously there was a
Yeah.
lot of toil and hardship, and a lot of getting scammed in between, a lot of low quality products that I didn't even know wouldn't work. I was just trying everything. I had a really really low budget, so I was buying like $1 to $5 ebooks on eBay about how to get rich quick online, basically. um,
You were
so
trying.
yeah, if anybody ever leans towards thinking that I have a decent IQ, I'm just going to remind them that I used to buy $1 to $5 get rich quick books on eBay, and just let them draw their own conclusions.
That's funny. So, was your social circle supportive of your business ideas or your business journey, since you say you stayed in the kind of concept, trying things, experimentation phase for 10 years? Did they stay like motivated, or were they like, Ian, you're really going to make it this time? Next
Yeah.
time you're going to make it?
Yeah, so
Or
I
how
would
did
say
that
that
go?
there are two phases of this for me, right? There's early phases where, like, I was, 19, well, 16 to 19, when I was first like trying to get off the ground.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like I mostly kept to myself, and really didn't talk to friends or family about it much, and just worked on it when I had the time, and I would stay up into the wee hours of the morning working on a lot of that stuff.
Mhm.
And Yeah, that I didn't really deal with any pushback because I wasn't really telling anyone about any of it.
Okay.
It
And
was a
they didn't
very like,
have expectations like you need to pay a certain amount to them or anything like that. You didn't have any people that had monetary expectations.
I mean, I did. I mean, I started paying basically all my own bills when I was 16 years old. That's also when I started college. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
How
so
did you do that?
a loophole that for whatever reason my mom found, where basically what I did was, like, on paper it was you drop out of high school and then you test into college, and so I started at a community college when I was 16, before I did a couple of years there before I ever went up to UT. um,
Wow.
and so certainly, I was paying all my own bills. I was in college. I tested in at 15, started when I was 16. My first, college semester was full-time, 12 hours, summer semester. So it was same time of hours of most full-time semesters, except 8 weeks instead of 16 weeks. And I was just working on it in my spare time. I often worked jobs during those periods as well. So, I mean, certainly it resonates with me. A lot of people in this industry feel like they don't have the time. They feel, a lot of them have jobs, a lot of them have other responsibilities or other obligations. I mean, if a, 16 to 18-year-old kid can, make the time while, going to college far before I was supposed to, and also, having to pay all my own bills while also working other jobs, etc.
That is a lot
Yeah,
of responsibility for that age.
yeah, I had to grow up fast. We certainly won't dive down that rabbit hole here, but I also think, that tough upbringing and the really kind of hostile environment I was raised in has a lot to do with how ambitious I've been throughout my life, and
Very cool.
how driven I've been. Certainly it's had its drawbacks too,
Hmm.
but yeah, at the end of the day, we're dealt the hand we're dealt, and you've got to make the most of it. And so yeah, I worked a lot of jobs, but where I primarily started was SEO, just in the odd hours here and there, when I wasn't in class and when I wasn't working. I was just trying to get that internet business up and running and off the ground.
Yeah. So when you started out, you weren't married when you started out.
Mm, exactly. So I'm glad you prompted that, because that kind of takes me into phase two. So I did get married really young. Not uncommon for people who come from really broken households. We're kind of seeking, some kind of like stability and
Yeah.
relationship very early in life. So I was married when I was 22. I was still in college. You say, well, 16 to 22, you should have been out of college by then. That's good math. So I started college when I was 16. I took about 2.5 years, or well, I did 2 years, took about 2.5 years off, and I went up to UT at 20. And then I did get really serious about my curriculum, or my the stuff I was supposed to be studying. I was taking a lot of classes that like interested me, and then I did 2 years of
Okay.
that, and I looked at it and I was like, hey, I was taking classes here and there that I needed to take, but I looked at it 2 years in and I was thinking like, how quickly is all this adding up? And it was like, not at all. It just wasn't adding up at all. I'd probably completed like a semester and a half worth of classes I actually needed to complete. And so I was like, okay, it's time to get serious about this. And so I graduated 2 years after that at 24. But when I was 22 and still in college, I was married. I got married. And I have been incredibly fortunate because working with, a lot of people over the years and being in this industry for a long time and having a lot of, colleagues and friends in the industry as well.
Hmm.
A lot of people deal with a lack of support,
Yeah.
and I can't even imagine, because it's already hard enough. You've already got enough, fighting against you.
Right.
And I have been incredibly fortunate that my wife has always given me the benefit of the doubt. She's always supported me, and even through my failures, right? I've always had my baseline of income. My failures have been like the things I was trying to like expand and branch out and
Yeah.
swing for the fences. But I was always, pulling my weight and supporting us. And now, for the past couple of years, I've been our sole income. And I was able to kind of return the favor of. A perfect example of her support was when I graduated college. I was
Hmm.
working full time because my internet income had flump, just gone completely into the gutter while I was in college. At state college will do that. And so we there were many distractions. So I started rebuilding my business really, really fervently a few months before I graduated, 23, 24. But when I graduated, I didn't have any internet income anymore. So I had to get a job. And
Yeah.
I got a job that at first I was very happy with, but a few months in, it was really clear that it was going to be a very one-sided relationship, as it is with many, many employers. And I really got burned up and used up, and about a year into that job, my wife told me, at that point, my business, because again, so here we are, another stage of life, working absolute full time, 40 to 50 hours a week minimum. I was working before work and after work. I would park and ride because I lived in kind of Northwest Austin, and I worked downtown. So instead of driving my way in or anything like that, I would drive down the road about a mile, 2 miles. I would
Hmm.
park and ride a city bus. I would tether to my phone for internet, and that would give me about 45 minutes each direction before work and after work, 45 minutes to an hour to write blog posts, to research, to do what I needed to do. And so after about a year at that job, plus the like probably 3 or 4 months before I graduated, starting to rebuild my business, my wife just said, you've got enough income. It was like $1,500 a month the site was making, but with the savings I had also saved up from the job, she was like, we're going to be fine, and you're miserable, and I want you to be happy. And so quit your job. Just go ahead and quit your job. And she wasn't even making an income yet because she was still in college. So from, even then, we had a lot less expenses back in those days than we have now.
Yeah.
I've missed those days occasionally, but she was incredibly supportive. And so, several years later, she was an English teacher, high school English teacher, and she was very, very unhappy at her job as well. And I was able to say, you're miserable. You did this for me several years ago.
Aw.
I'm doing well enough in my business now. We'll figure it out. And
Yeah.
fortunately, that was a couple of years ago. And Yeah, now that we venture into the territory of thinking about starting a family and stuff like that, it's fortunate. It lines up well. We have a bunch of friends that have recently started families, and it makes me realize what a really fortunate position we're in, that I have to be incredibly grateful for, that, my wife is going to be able to be home with our kids, and that's what she
Right.
wants to do. That's not like,
Yeah.
that's not like the you have to do this. Like, that's what she really, really wants to do.
Yeah.
And it complements, a really, really ambitious entrepreneur's lifestyle very, very well, fortunately for
Yeah.
me.
That's
So
very
yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah,
So I think you explained prioritization.
yeah.
So as far as proving the concept, since you've started so many different businesses, at what point do you consider that the business is working, that this is something that I should focus more on? Like, when do you think you have proof of concept in an online business?
Oof, that's going to be really tough, right? That depends greatly on your business model, right? With SEO, it's going to be your initial trickles of traffic,
Okay.
and when you start organically receiving comments. For me, that's like one of the first real big, like, well, like, it's not an income producer, but it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, something's working, something's happening.
Yeah.
And so for me, comments have always been like one of the first. You've just got to cling to whatever you can get when you're going the organic traffic route,
Yeah.
because it takes so long, and it just feels like you're just throwing all of your hopes and dreams and effort and energy into this deep black hole, and then
Yeah.
finally one day that black hole burps up an organic comment, and you're like, whoa, and so for those, and then of
It
course,
burps it.
yeah, and then of course, usually sometime a little before that, sometime a little after that, you're probably seeing your first commissions, whether that's
Yeah.
$2. My first affiliate commission, fortunately, years ago was like $70. I made it, no exaggeration, when I was
Whoa.
19 years old. I made it when I've always been a big napper. Kind of as an entrepreneur, it's kind of like my guilty pleasure too, because it's like productivity nap, and uh, so I wasn't so hard on myself back then, and I was down for a nap. I woke up, and of course it was just some fairly crappy ClickBank product. Didn't know any better at the time, and uh, refreshed ClickBank, and boom, there was a bar there that was never. I was checking that thing constantly around those days, and so that got me really excited. So those are for organic, content based, which is going to be someone who's really cash strapped. By far the best business model. You're talking about your initial trickles of traffic, your initial organic comments, and your initial um, commissions, your initial income. And it's all going to be
Yeah.
very small in the beginning, but it's something. And it starts to kind of refill that fountain that you've been, that well that you've been pulling out of with no return at all whatsoever. And then suddenly you start to get these little gushes of inspiration and hope back into it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, for pay-per-click, it's very different. You get, much clearer feedback when you're talking pay-per-click. You could launch a website and launch ad campaigns and know within a week if you're testing at $100 or $200 a day. Some people test significantly more aggressive than that even.
Hmm.
But you're going to know within a week, 2 weeks, whether like your initial campaigns are not going to work, and or if they are going to work and you can scale them, or you're going to know like within probably 4 to 6 weeks, if you keep trying, you're trying different products, you're trying different campaigns, you're trying different audiences, different ad copy, etc., and you're just not getting anything to connect after 4 or 6 weeks, you probably just fleshed out, in my opinion, that business model about as well as you can, and it's probably time to move on. Yeah, at
So,
least when you're dependent on pay-per-click traffic.
okay, so for an organic business, you would expect proof of concept somewhere after, what, 6 months, a year?
Yeah, I always tell people, and this has certainly been my experience after running a lot of different content-based businesses that depend on SEO, because that is where I cut my teeth for the first several years.
Hmm.
I always say 8 to 12 months minimum. And if you're in a really, really competitive niche, you're
Hmm.
probably looking at, somewhere around 50% or 100% higher than that. Um, and uh, and of course, a lot of people coming in expecting to start making money 2 months into their journey. That's a mismatch, right? Pretty obvious mismatch. So yeah, for that, I would say 8 to 12 months minimum. Sometimes, I mean, even in our community, we've had people that start to see really promising results in lower competition niches or niches that are in a foreign language, within 4 to 6 months. A foreign
Very
language. It's not a
cool.
foreign language to them. It's a language that's not English, I should say.
Yeah.
So 4 to 6 months, but those are exceptional. And like, I even, they'll be commenting in the Facebook group and they'll be like telling people what's going on, and someone will post with a question. They'll be like, oh, this is what happened for us. And I'll have to chime in and just be like, hey, just as a heads up, these are really exceptional results, and you shouldn't be discouraged if you don't see these 4 to 6 month results. You should anticipate 8 to 12 months before you start seeing any decent level of income or consistent traffic and engagement.
Yeah. So, and when it comes to pay-per-click or a business that's running paid traffic, what would you say what's a good timeline for that?
I mean, I hate to be the guy that always gives variable answers. I was actually at a conference recently in Boston, and Ryan Deiss was there, who of course is a legendary internet marketer and
Right.
very, very successful. And he was like, you always want to be the person that gives firm answers, even if they're oversimplified and they're not 100% accurate. You want to be, because people don't, people listen to you more. They trust your brand more. But that's just not how internet marketing works. And I'm just the kind of guy, like, I want to put the truth out there. So, segueing into my variable answer, it's really going to depend on how much experience you have, right?
Yeah.
And how much money you have. A lot of people preach in pay-per-click marketing, oh, you can get started with $5 a day. No big deal.
Right.
Just run $5 a day ad campaigns, and, just do what you can. And that, you're going to progress. It's just like, that's the content marketing equivalent of telling someone like, hey, just post an article a year and eventually you're going to get there. It's going to be okay. It doesn't work that way. I mean, you're going to probably get outpaced by competition. If you are on to any reasonably, valid niche or idea or audience, it's probably going to get tapped within the 2 years, because someone's going to come along with $100 to $200 a day budget, be able to do that like that. They just accomplished several weeks of work for you, and so it's also going to depend a lot on experience, especially for people that have a low budget. First of all, just to dispel, so many product publishers on the pay-per-click side say, hey, not only can you start with $5 a day, but you can start to see results, blah, blah, blah. I don't think anybody has any business dabbling in pay-per-click and expecting results if they don't have a minimum of $5,000 to $10,000 that they can afford to lose. Because there are plenty of people that get into pay-per-click and they lose 10 grand before they even start to see anything come back. It's not even like they're breaking even at that point. They are still losing money. And so a lot of that depends on skill level. And that's one of the reasons I advocate for organic first. A lot of product publishers that sell pay-per-click, they say, don't go organic, takes too long, you're never going to succeed with it. It's a dying industry, SEO's dead. They say all these things to fearmonger so that you'll fall into their little funnel and buy into their ideas. But they're just not setting people up for success. When you are getting organic traffic and you're getting it for free, you can learn all those other skills, because to be a truly effective pay-per-click advertiser, paid, someone who spends hundreds or thousands of dollars a day on paid advertising, if not more, and you want to see results, you need to not only know, content creation, you need to know conversion optimization, you need to know email marketing, you need to know
buyer psychology.
Absolutely. And there's a ton to know about pay-per-click as well. When you're talking, especially depending on different platform, there are different things to know. Like, you get into Facebook, and it's a very different environment. Some of the ground level concepts carry over, but it's a very different environment than Google or native ads or YouTube ads.
Shareability versus searchability.
Absolutely. And so, and your audience is engaged with that very differently, right? That's why Google has always been, Google search specifically has always been such desirable and high cost advertising in a lot of competitive spaces, because their intent. Whereas on Facebook, you're disrupting. Native ads, you're very often disrupting. And so, it depends on the skill level. I mentioned earlier that I tried and failed with pay-per-click several times over the years before I finally cracked it, because I was buying into that, oh, you just need $5 a day, $10 a day. that
Yeah.
wasn't working for me. And then a few years ago, I'd say somewhere around 4 years ago, I started getting into e-commerce and drop shipping, and I started my spend at like $80 a day. And fortunately, it was night and day versus the years when I tried it prior, because I was finally on Shopify. I finally bit the bullet on Shopify instead of WooCommerce, because I just read about it. And I was like, I always thought like this is overpriced, whatever. So I finally did
And because you were a
Shopify.
WooCommerce, or you were a WordPress guy, so you had to
Exactly.
start everything on
And
WordPress.
truly, I'm just and when it comes to like business expenses and monthly subscriptions, particularly, I am so like, over the last couple of years, I've gotten a lot better. But I have just been such like a penny pincher, because like when I started, I couldn't afford a $20 a month keyword research tool, like I could not afford it, and so that kind of carried through in probably a not too healthy way, even as I was,
Yeah.
making thousands of dollars a month. I wouldn't spring like right now, we have me and my team have an Ahrefs subscription, right? That's $107 a month. We have
Yeah.
ClickFunnels, that's $100 a month. We have our hosting, and we have fairly premium hosting, that's, I want to say probably 50 or $60 a month. Like I was thinking about before you even get into payroll, all of our expenses for all the stuff we have now probably adds up to, $1,000 a month, especially when you factor in like Drip, our email marketing tool,
That's still not
stuff like that.
bad.
It's not, because it can get really out of hand. But yeah, so over the years, I was avoiding these expenses so much, because they, especially anything. I think it was less about the money, and it was more about like the monthly recurring. I've
Right.
always that's always been difficult for me to kind of, yeah.
Commit.
Yeah, but so to answer the question, as far as I tend to be a little bit too thorough. I apologize. But to answer the question about time with pay-per-click advertising, if you're experienced, when I launched those ads at $80 a day, the first day I woke up the next day, I was profitable. Now, some of that was luck, just chance. And some of that was just knowing internet marketing a lot better. And like you said, like consumer psychology and behavior a lot better from all those years running all those other authority websites and learning so much about conversion optimization, et cetera. So if you're fairly experienced, you can probably expect to hop in and, within a month, crack pay-per-click, especially if you have a $5,000 or $10,000 marketing budget. You don't want to spend it irresponsibly, but you also want to have the mindset of, this is not me wasting money. This is me buying data and learning.
Yeah.
And that's any strong media buyer has that mindset, any experienced media buyer. And so, but if you're not experienced, I mean, with the same budget, you're probably not going to spend it quite as quickly, because you're going to take more time to like research and study, not only your data, but other training, et cetera, and acquire these skills. I would say still, you're probably looking at 3 or 6 months. If you're, and the fact of the matter is, most people are going to become so demoralized. You can tell people all day, you need to have this mindset of like, you're not wasting money, you're buying data, you're buying experience, you're learning. But you can only, it's one thing when it's organic and you're just like throwing in energy and that's your only cost. But when it's cold hard cash that you're taking off the table of your family, potentially, that you could go and buy these things that you've always wanted. You could upgrade your computer. You could drive a nicer car, all these
Yeah.
temptations, these materialistic things that we want as well. And then just the psychology of, even if it's just coming out of your retirement or something, like that money, it feels wasted. And so,
Yeah.
in my opinion, most people that have very little experience when it comes to, any kind of copywriting or digital marketing or anything, they're not going to be able to, it's going to be a very rare person who can really go through that entire 3 or 6 months and still be sticking with it.
Yeah.
Because that's
So
that's
three
a
or 6 months, 5,000 a month,
well, no, and I wouldn't say 5,000 a month. Fortunately, I would say 5 or 10,000 total. You're just probably burning through it a little bit slower, than someone who
Okay.
has more experience, because they're probably going to start testing, $100 to $200 a day. That's to this day where I often launch my ad sets when I'm launching new pay-per-click ad sets. $100 to $200 a day for testing markets and ramp up with what's working, cut what's not working. But they're probably going to be able to spend that within a month or two, because they're more experienced and they're iterating a lot faster. They're launching new landing pages. They're testing new audiences. They're testing new products. They're just testing a lot faster. Whereas
Yeah.
someone who is still learning a lot is probably going back to the drawing board a lot more often, researching a little bit more, analyzing their stuff a little bit more closely, and
More
iterating a
scared and
lot more.
cautious.
Exactly. And iterating a lot more slowly. But it's probably still going to be the same 5 or 10 grand overall. It's just going to be spent slower because you're not going to evolve and iterate quite as fast as someone who's more skilled.
Okay. When I did my interview with John Cristani, he talked about how a lot of people are too cautious when they're starting ads. So I think that's consistent with what he was saying. He said he starts really aggressive, and when he actually had a big issue where he had to start all over again in business. He said he was just launching ads after ads after ads, just really aggressively to get it working. So it
Yeah,
sounds like you guys are saying something really similar.
absolutely. I would totally agree with that.
Yeah. So in terms of something that I rarely hear about in online business is whether or not you need legal support and what type of legal
Hmm.
support you might need and all of that stuff. When would be an occasion when you would talk to a legal professional in online business? I think that it's almost treated like like a dream. It's not really treated like it's a real business. And when you have offline business, you have liabilities you need to protect. You have people who could potentially sue you for various things, and you need legal support. When would you say a person would need to seek legal support or need to have um, somebody to call if they needed legal help when they have an online business?
So, obviously it's the textbook answer, and it's accurate. It's just not plausible. It's not reasonable, realistic for most people. It's day
Okay.
one, right? That's the textbook answer that I think is truly the right answer. Again, talking to a guy that couldn't afford a $20 per month keyword tool when I first started, I went far too long without legal guidance. And fortunately, the affiliate space specifically was a much simpler legal environment then. Now you have all kinds of FTC compliance, you have GDPR compliance, all that stuff that people have to deal with. And in
Yeah.
my community, even, often we get people asking about these things, and the answer is always, I can give my insight and my experience. I always give the disclaimer: I'm not an attorney, I'm not a legal professional, but you need to, here's what I've been through, and you need to speak to a legal professional. The realistic answer, I would say, is as soon as you could afford it. I went
Yeah.
several years without even forming an LLC. And looking back, that was very high risk.
Yeah.
And the other nice thing about having, the big advantage, even if you're not getting sued and you don't have limited liability, you're not worried about any of that stuff. It's
Uh-huh.
so important to have a business, an LLC, at least in the United States. It's different depending on what region you're in, because then you can separate all of your financials very clearly from, all of your personal stuff.
Yeah.
You have different credit cards, so the transactions are totally segregated. My personal and my business stuff is totally segregated right now, which makes bookkeeping so much easier and
It
accounting so much
does.
easier.
Yeah.
Um, but the realistic answer is as soon as you can afford it. We're in the middle, in the startup that I co-founded and I own about a third of. We're in the middle of bringing on a fourth partner, international. So it's a cross-border complex deal.
Wow.
And like, we had to wire our attorney today another $20,165 in retainer. Um,
Exact amount, right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Plus the $40 wire transfer fee. I always take note of fees. It doesn't matter how much money's in the bank. But and that was out of thin air. We'd already, because the way attorneys work in really, complex deals like this, he's a $375 an hour attorney, and he's one of like 4 of a team we have for this project, bringing on this partner. And overall, this is probably going to cost us somewhere between $70,000 and $100,000 in legal.
Wow.
Right. And so we've already spent, I want to say, prior to the 20,165 that went out today, which is really 20,205 because of the wire transfer fee. We're already, I want to say, $35,000 in prior to that.
Wow.
But at the same time, you know, this particular business, we have the cash flow, we have the money in the bank to do it. And it's one of those things that we're building. Right now, we have about a $10 million valuation as soon as this partnership deal goes
Very
through.
cool.
And then, you know, we're hoping to have a $100 million plus exit in 3 to 5 years. Who knows if it happens? You know, certainly I've learned as an entrepreneur to kind of just do everything you can and let go of the outcome. Who knows if a year from now I'm just rebuilding everything from the ground up.
So remind me to get your autograph.
Yeah. Because us entrepreneurs, autographs are so valuable, right? No, so but you know, when we're talking about a deal of that size, we have to cover all of our bases. We had to have
Right.
good attorneys. We couldn't just go on Upwork and hire any, you know, Joe Schmo that charges $100 an
Right.
hour. We needed someone with cross-border experience who was bilingual, you know, who was specifically very experienced in mergers and acquisitions,
Yeah.
because that's what this deal is. And so, yeah, certainly, you know, if you had told me even, you know, certainly 10 years ago, but even last year, 2 years ago, if you're like, hey, you know, you're going to be looking at spending close to 6 figures, you know, high 5 figures, close to 6 figures on legal fees for a partnership deal, I would have called you crazy and been excited out of my mind, because I knew that the business would have the money to do that responsibly.
Right.
So yeah, you know, it's a wide spectrum. The take-home message is you shouldn't have to worry about spending $70,000 on an attorney early days. But you know, get minimum probably get some form in the U.S. at least, and whatever the equivalent is in your region. As soon as you can, get some form of limited liability company set up. Yeah, you know, probably get some form. It'll cost a few $100 to like get well-written terms and conditions for your website. And it's just nice to have someone to call, you know, especially, I don't know if you've gone through this yet, as someone who runs a review website, but legal threats are not an uncommon occurrence
Oh
in that
yeah,
particular
I
industry.
have had that happen. You
Yeah.
know, before we move on, I want to mention that InkFile has free incorporation right now.
Mm.
So all you have to pay is the legal fees or the state fees. So whatever state you're in, they have free incorporation. All you have to pay is the state fee. So if you're interested in that and you're watching this interview, definitely stop by howtoentrepreneur.org/inkfile. That's my affiliate link. So we'll get a kickback if you decide to use that link. But InkFile has free incorporation, and it's something you should definitely do. So also, you talked about terms and services, and I've used Rocket Lawyer, and it's fairly inexpensive to, you can actually, they have DIY documents, but then they also have lawyers who will review it included in their membership, and their membership is $40 a month. So that's a fairly low cost to have a legal professional reviewing documents for you. And so I think that's a good place to start instead of hiring somebody, like you said, $325 an hour or something like that. If you're starting out on a low budget, then you can use a service like Rocket Lawyer. And if you're interested in that as well, of course, I have an affiliate link for that. And that's howtoentrepreneur.org/Rocket Lawyer. I've used them and I've had a great experience with them.
So really quick, I'd like to, you know, share some insight on that too, just to make sure I get probably just be too thorough, but round out the spectrum here. You know, I totally agree 100% with starting out. You know, I think a lot of those services, they're absolutely better than nothing.
Yes.
You know, what a lot of people will, a lot of attorneys, and I don't think they're just talking trash to justify their high fees. You
Yeah.
know, there's certainly a big difference if you are, you know, when your business does get to the point that it's, you know, it's making a consistent few $1,000s a month or
Mm-hmm.
something along those lines, consulting with, you know, a one-on-one attorney that probably specializes in, like, when I could finally afford it, and like, for example, when it came up when I was running a review website, getting in touch with someone who specialized and had a lot of experience in defamation, was, you know, slander, libel was really, really important.
Yeah.
But, you know, same thing with your terms and conditions, and even like, ideally, if you're going to build a really big business, you have a lawyer involved even during the LLC filing process, because they
Yeah.
file like your articles of incorporation and stuff like that in a very different way than some of those kind of templated sites do. So I
Hmm.
agree, it's absolutely better than nothing, and it certainly makes it a lot more not just palatable, but like realistic, and
Hmm.
and within reach for people who are
Yeah.
just getting started. And it's certainly better than nothing. So I would agree completely with your endorsements and use Tiffany's affiliate links for sure. Because that's one of the things I've always try to be aware of too. Not to plug you too hard, but if someone like turns you on to something and they're the reason, like you got that insight, so many people have no loyalty, and they'll just be like, rocket lawyer
Yeah.
coupon code, and it's like, yeah, you might save 10%, but like, I always, especially these days, being an affiliate marketer, if someone is the reason I learned about something and they just saved me a ton of time and a ton of energy, like, support them, use their
Yeah.
affiliate link. Like, it's what keeps them in business. It's what keeps them giving you information like that and insight like that.
Right.
So I've got a little bit of a pet peeve there after FEMP struggled for 2 years, but yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, but now you're making a comeback. So
you know
on
it.
another official thing that I want to talk about is accounting. So you probably have experience doing your own accounting and possibly hiring accountants to help out. At what point do you think that's a good idea for online business owners?
Again, as soon as you can, realistically,
Yeah, I agree with
it's
that.
something I should have done long before I did. I was using TurboTax for a number of years, and one of the things, especially in the United States, I have to say it, I'm not a financial professional. I'm not an accountant. I'm not qualified to give these opinions,
Hmm.
but my experience has been, and the experience of the vast majority of business owners that I know who are clued in on this stuff,
Hmm.
is not only having an LLC in the United States at least, but having an LLC that's elected to be taxed as an S corp, because it saves you on some of your taxation.
Yeah.
And I only found that out because I finally got a good accountant. And so at that point, I want to say I had had my LLC for 2 or 3 years, and it's one of those things that the next year you get your accounting bill, you're like, wait, did they just do this for their own financial benefit? Because my taxes just went from $350 to $1,500, just
Wow.
to get it done. But realistically, it benefits you greatly. An accountant would know better, but essentially, I want to say it saves you something like 13% overall on your taxes. You pay yourself a salary every month, and then anytime you need more money, you distribute. I won't get into the logistics because, again, I'm not a financial professional, but I didn't know all of that until I had a real world accountant. And realistically, I was probably overpaying my taxes by, several hundred, if not several $1,000s a year before I got really serious about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, as soon as you can, just like a legal professional, I would actually say an accountant comes even before an attorney, a legal professional, especially because so many of the legal professional things can kind of be, at least slap a band-aid on it through a lot of the services we talked about. Have that as a stopgap, and then make sure you're not, you know I'm definitely not one of those people that tries to avoid taxation, because we live in the country that, depending on where you are, whatever your lifestyle is, like, that's, you're living where it is possible to build that business. So I've
Right.
never been like, I'm going to maximize my deductions and make sure I'm not paying more than my fair share, but I'm going to pay my fair share and not, pardon my French,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to bitch about it, because here in the United States we have an incredibly, some would argue almost too much so, friendly business
Generous.
environment,
Yeah.
and so yeah,
Especially in Texas.
yeah, oh yeah, and so make sure you're not giving that giving away any more of that lifeblood that you need to build and grow than necessary. And I would
Right.
say an accountant is probably top priority as far as whenever you can afford it. Make sure you're structured the right way and make sure you're being taxed the right way.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you talking about those things. I think one thing that you're really good at is lead generation, and lead conversion. So I really want to talk to you about lead generation and lead conversion. I've had a lot of affiliates that I've gotten the opportunity to work with, and a lot of times they get really confused, me too, but confused about how time should be managed. Should you be commenting on other blogs? Should you be looking for backlinks? Should you be posting on social media? What's the most important thing for you to do? And most people's top priority is to make money, to get sales in some way. So would you say lead generation is the most important thing for new entrepreneurs to be doing?
Mm. Personally, I would say no. I would say traffic. I would say traffic. Well, because without traffic, you don't have lead gen, right?
Yeah.
There's no leads to draw from because your website's not getting any visitors, right? So, it's one of those things that's a little, for me, that's a little bit a little bit like trying to do calculus before you know algebra.
Yeah.
And so that's what I really harp on, like, focus on traffic. Like, there's so much to get distracted by. There's so much to do, and you're going to do it all in time. But you're not going to do any of it without traffic. And it also comes back to me for that, to that well of finite resources that every blog post you write, every hour you spend doing keyword research, whatever your strategies are, you're pulling out of that well and it's empty. And that well is going to run dry at some point, and it's different for all of us. And none of us have any idea when it goes dry and we say, that's it, I'm done with this.
Right.
It may be a month for some people. It may be 12 months for others. For gluttons for punishment like me, it's, it seems like a lifetime.
Yeah.
So what I tell people is, you can worry about how well placed your affiliate links are, or you can worry about, building in a widget on your website for
design.
For gathering emails. Design, absolutely. It's such a time suck. And certainly, not to put my foot in my mouth or anything, a lot of people in this industry will tell you, email marketing from day one on your website. You should have email marketing, because if you do that, oh yeah, ClickFunnels favorite, yeah.
You have to put up your funnel first.
Yeah, because the moment they convince you of that you're going to use their affiliate link and make them a recurring residual commission. And the fact of the matter is, if you don't have traffic on your website, you don't have to worry about email marketing. This is my opinion, right? So full disclosure, it's going to differ from a lot of other people's. But when you're talking about that finite well that you're digging in and you're pulling out these finite resources, the one thing that's going to fuel that quicker than anything, it's not going to be how well designed your website is. It's not going to be whether or not you're getting email subscribers, because without traffic, you're not going to get email subscribers. It's not going to be, money. If you're talking about organic and you're low budget and you're just shoestringing it, your first thing that's going to fill that well back up is starting to see consistent levels of traffic. And it's the most achievable. It's frankly the thing that requires the least amount of skill of all of the things we do as internet marketers, because as long as it's like writing. So many of us learn how to write in school, and frankly, that's a good enough starting point to get in and just start creating content and basically writing essays as blog posts. And then you can start getting traffic and building on that. So that's why I say traffic is number one, because with traffic, you have nothing. Without lead generation, certainly I would say after that, lead generation is the next most important step, rather than just skipping straight to like trying to, monetize and get affiliate links all over your site and all this different stuff. So we're close to agreeing, but I certainly am of the mind that you don't get lead generation without having traffic. So whether you're going paid, whether you're going organic, your primary focus absolutely should be getting traffic in a sustainable way.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about what tasks that would mean that people have to do. So are you talking about creating the content is like what they need to do in order to generate leads, and possibly running ads if they decide to go that route?
Yeah, I mean, for the organic side, it's going to be keyword research and content creation. Because so many people just like blindly create create content just writing about whatever they want to write about.
Yeah.
You know, there's good content, there's bad
Inspiration.
content. There's good audiences, there's bad audiences, right? You don't want to write a bunch of content for people who are never going to take action on your affiliate links. They're never going to make you any money. You
Yeah.
know, you want to write for buying audiences.
Yeah.
And of course, any basic course is going to cover that fairly thoroughly. But you know, the way it's defined is a lot clearer in some courses than others. Some of them say, hey, you need to have a buying audience. And they just go on to the next thing. You
Yeah.
know, I think it's really important to break down, especially for people who are new to all this, what a buying audience is, what a buying
Yeah.
audience isn't. We're giving examples of good niches and bad niches, etc.
Yeah, you
So,
did a good job in that, in fact.
well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
It's the niche selection training that I wish I had when I was, you know, when I was getting started. And so, yeah, I think for the organic side, you're strapped for cash, but you're willing to put in more effort as a result, and it's going to take longer periods of time.
Hmm.
It's keyword research with a good keyword research tool that has accurate competitor data, et cetera. They're not all created equal. And it's content creation and on-page SEO for that. You know, it's like a trifecta. You need the keyword research, you need the content creation, and you need to be able to optimize on-page. You know, on-page SEO isn't super challenging. It's pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it. So
Yeah.
incorporating that keyword into your SEO.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, for pay-per-click side, it's more about finding a good audience. The race is a little bit different there. It's finding a good audience to product match, because at that point you're bleeding money, right?
Hmm.
Regardless of how strong your mindset is, you're bleeding money. And you know, your goal should be to get to break even as quickly as possible, because as soon as you get to break even, you can start to scale and probably get to profitability. And so for that one, I would say it's more just about finding sustainability, that sweet spot where you're going to break even. You have a good audience to offer match, whether that's a physical product or a digital product or a service of some kind. You know, the race there is getting to break even. That's step
Yeah.
one.
Okay. And once you get to the point where you have the traffic, and you're converting the traffic, how much time do you think should be invested in that? What type of task does that take? What skills have to be mastered in order to perfect that part?
I would say conversion optimization comes down largely to two things: patience and copywriting. And if I
Yeah.
had to throw in a third, and I probably should throw in a third, it's data interpretation. Basically,
Yeah.
just basic statistics. You don't have to pick up a statistics book, and you don't have to have taken a really thorough statistics class, but you need to understand data when you're looking at it. You need to know what statistical significance is, what, you know, confidence intervals are, you know, stuff like that. Because, you know, you'll launch a split test for a landing page or an ad. Let's stick to one. Let's say a landing page, right? And you see
Uh-huh.
like, hey, my old landing page was converting at 10% email opt-ins. My new landing page is converting at 40% email opt-ins. And it's really exciting. But if you get to an 85% confidence interval and you call that, I have had so many split tests over the years that it looks so good. It's at 85, 86, 88, even 90%. You're like, man, this is going to be a winner. And then, you let it sit a couple more days, and that confidence interval drops, and then over time it turns on its head. And if you didn't know about 95% confidence intervals, that's what you should be testing for. You you would have picked a loser.
Yeah.
So conversion optimization comes down to patience, copywriting, and
Data
data interpretation
interpretation.
and analysis. And as far as how much time to spend on it, if you've got traffic, as much as you can. You don't
Yeah.
want to let your website go dead. You don't want it to look abandoned. You need to keep some content creation going out if that's your business model, right?
Mm-hmm.
But pay-per-click often doesn't center so much about constantly pumping out content. Certainly a lot of it can still center very successfully on content, but you might be able to run an ad campaign centered around one piece of content, one article for a month or 3 months or longer, and
Yeah.
cycle it back in once there's ad fatigue. But I would say not to keep giving the answers of blank you can, but as much as you can.
Yeah,
realistically,
as early
you
as you
know,
can.
yeah, I mean, this became very obvious to me when I was hit by Google Penguin 2.0, launched years ago, and
It's so funny the names of those.
I know, right? And so that was the one that really targeted backlink profiles. Before that, even Pat Flynn, everyone was teaching like, you just go out, you build a bunch of backlinks, you use the anchor text, and now that's known as anchor text over optimization. It gets you slapped hard by Google, sometimes algorithmically, sometimes manually. Well, back in the day, that was just how you got ranked. And the timing was really, really, really poor because that was right after I quit my job. And my traffic dropped to like 20% of what it
Oh
was previously,
man.
some days 10%. And I had to figure out how to get the same $1,500 to $2,000 a month out of fractional levels of traffic.
Mm.
And so that's when I really dug deep into conversion optimization. And I've been in super affiliate circles where, we have a conference or we have a get together or we're chatting because we're friends. And, my colleagues in the same industry running very similar websites are getting 10 times the traffic I'm getting, and we're making the same amount of income.
Yeah.
Some of that has to do with me being very present, mindful of writing for buying audiences. And a lot of that has to do, rather than just whatever traffic I can get, because a lot of people
Right.
make that mistake, and it just really convolutes the power and potential and earning potential of your website.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that comes down to conversion optimization. If I'm launching a landing page for an email opt-in, my target opt-in rate at a minimum is 35 to 40%. I'd like to see it more around 40 to 50%. Stuff like that. And there are a lot of people out there that are satisfied with 10. And you just keep testing. So, I say patience, just to round this out, because you could run split tests depending on how much traffic you're getting is going to depend on how much, that's going to determine how quickly you get statistical significance,
Yeah.
right? Enough conversions on that page for it to be valid.
Yeah.
And so, if you're getting 100 visitors a day, you're going to get there at 10% of the time someone who's getting 1,000 visitors a day. But you might run different variations, different split tests of that landing page for weeks. You just go from 10% to 15% conversion rate. From 15% conversion rate, whoa, jump to 25%. Change the copy up completely. Holy crap, I found 40%, right? But that process may take months, depending on how quickly you're getting traffic.
Yeah.
So
I think
I don't know if you're smiling because I'm just like overwhelming you like crazy with all these
no,
numbers and
that was
stuff.
one of my favorite parts of Internet Marketing Project is the
Yeah.
conversion optimization part. I
Yeah.
was like, man, this is gold.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And it's overlooked. It's overlooked. There's
It really is.
so many things that entrepreneurs, internet marketers and affiliate marketers of all kinds, there's a lot to be said to specialize in one thing and just keep your focus there. If that's the type of person you are and you can do that, I've seen people clear $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month just doing that, right? Just doing like PBNs and content creation.
Mm-hmm.
But, at the end of the day, you take that same site and you put it in someone's hands who knows how to go to an affiliate manager and negotiate. No, I don't want the $75 per bounty, per sale payout. I want $135. And I can hit these minimum quotas to get there, right? So you just about doubled what many of your competitors are going to be getting commission, and it's all done behind the scenes.
Right.
And very often it's a hush hush deal. It's kind of like, hey, don't tell anyone else about this because nobody else gets this rate. But it's just because if you know how to negotiate, you know how to leverage offers against one another. A huge lever there in an affiliate marketing business. And conversion optimization is another one of those where people are just looking at that and they're going, this opt-in rate's satisfactory, this conversion rate is satisfactory. And then there's going to be someone else in your industry going, no, I want more. And they're going to be able to get 5 times, 10 times the money out of their site with the same traffic you're getting. And at the end of the day, that's just another strategic competitive advantage.
The reason why I was smiling, I was actually going to turn into a big laugh because I didn't know. I had a question, but I didn't know. I didn't write it down, and I didn't send it to you in advance. And I was going to see how you were going to respond to it.
Okay. Let's see.
I really wanted to know if you will record your conversion optimization stuff that you're doing, like over the shoulder, because I know right now you're doing lots of conversion optimization for FIMP and Internet Marketing Project, and I think that would be super cool to see.
That's a good point. I've never really thought about it because it's one of those things that's a pretty big undertaking, right? And
that's why it would be cool to see.
It's true. It's true. I would really like that would be a really good addition. I'm definitely open to it. I mean, especially right now, a lot of my conversion in my startup where I head up all the marketing and advertising, conversion rate optimization, all that stuff's on me. And, like
Yeah,
if you're looking,
share some of that.
if we're talking about, internet marketing project, FIMP, stuff like that, that's all a team member that I mentor these days. And like we record all of our sessions and he keeps really good track of his progress. He much better than I ever did. When he's running tests, yeah, it's Isaac, exactly. So when he's running tests,
you gotta give Isaac a plug. He's good.
Oh, he's the man. I love that guy. And he's, of course he started in FIMP.
Cool.
And he wanted to craft his copywriting skills, and I got to the point at FIMP where I was looking for some help with a lot of the conversion optimization and stuff because I was getting so devoured by my startup that it was like I can't do both of these things.
Yeah.
And he has come so far. We've been working together about a year now. Like right around this time, we're within a week or two of our 1 year mark working together.
Very cool.
And that was a relationship where, of course, he's salaried. He's we had a conversation before, and it was what finances do you need to make this happen? But also it's a mentorship. I'm always showing up for Isaac. I'm always critiquing his work, guiding him, and for me that was, especially in this arrangement, but with all my staff members, it's about like teaching them. It's not just about getting them to do the work and getting them to do it well. It's about teaching them skills that if they move on from my business, whether they're going further in their career or they're breaking out on their own, which many of my past team members have.
And that's great leadership.
Yeah, well, and that's for me. It's like, hey, I'm going to invest all this time into you. Depending on like Isaac's role, I said I need you to say, I need you to agree that you're going to stick around for at least 2 years because I'm going to be teaching you some of the best stuff I know and some of the stuff that took me over a decade to learn. And I'm going to be pouring a ton of time into you and energy, and for you to perform at the level you want to perform as an internet marketer. But like a writer coming on, I often tell them at the very beginning, if you want to branch out on your own, you're more than welcome to do it. I'd love to have you as long as you're happy to stay. But, I ask that you stay at least a year because it's going to take me, probably a few weeks to get them trained up as a writer. And then, get the rest of that time. And then they're welcome to go start their own blog, start their own website, whatever they want to do. But yeah, Isaac's been the man. And he keeps spreadsheets and like he tracks data like a savant. I mean, he's brilliant when it comes to that stuff, and he's so much more organized than I ever was. So yeah, anyways, I'll stop bragging on Isaac. Stop bragging on Isaac for a bit.
Very cool. Well, I think you answered so many questions that I had, and I know that this is probably information overload for everybody watching.
Probably.
I think that a lot of the information, you're adding so much into Internet Marketing Project and FIMP, First Time Internet Marketing Profits. So I think that a lot of information can be found there if people wanted to find out more. What projects are you currently working on inside of First Time Internet Marketing Project or Internet Marketing Project, and how are you dividing those up? And yeah.
So we're at different stages with each, right? First Time Internet Marketing Profits was, the challenge there is obviously consistent support. People always have access to me. We have processes in place so that multiple times per week I'm supporting the people that need help. And that's mainly done these days in the form of a Facebook group. We may change that at some point to something that's more of like a standalone forum.
Yay,
but of course, I'll have to research it, but probably, yeah. And so a lot of that is just making sure it stays up to date, of course. and supporting people. But the foundations that are taught there, the interfaces change, but the principles have been constant for years, and they'll be constant for years to come. When it comes to Internet Marketing Project, we just finished out our first, the curriculum that was designed for the project from the beginning to cover all of these, 15 or 16 different things, where you would typically have to go out and buy a $500 product here, a $1,000 product here, a $2,000 product here. It's all under one umbrella. It's, the Swiss Army knife of internet marketing. And the goal there was to get to people, to top 1% of internet marketers in the world, regardless of how they apply those skills, whether they go get a job somewhere, whether they do it in their own business, to get them to the top 1% with all of those different skill sets, because they complement and play off of each other so well.
Yeah.
And so I don't know exactly what we're going to continue doing there. It's definitely going to continue receiving more content. Of course, making sure that the content always stays up to date. That's a challenge in and of itself in this industry. But yeah, and then of course, for the not to fight against myself here, but my main passion in this industry is making sure that there's a cost-effective way to get started in this industry. And so that's what the book From Nothing is. It's the text and screenshot version of first-time internet marketing profits. And Kindle, that's like $10. Paperback, that's 18. Audible is whatever Audible sets the price to, and so that's start to finish. I mean, that's not, there are mentions in there of like, if you want to get the video training, it's available here, but it's not at all necessary. It's again, not to fight against myself here. Certainly there are people that are going to do a lot better with video training. They're going to hold themselves a lot more accountable. They're going to get a lot more detail, a lot more guidance that way, but everything's in there. My goal with that was to create a book that got people from absolutely nothing, knowing nothing, having less than $100 in resources to invest like I did, and getting to a profitable internet marketing business 8 to 12 months later. And so that's my passion. That's the Kindle book I published. And I just want people to have access to this stuff, because for me, I got attracted to internet marketing because it was a way for me to change my life and be in full control of my life and never have to work for someone else. Awesome. And for me, that's something that should be accessible to the people who are willing to put in the work and they're willing to follow instructions. I want that to be so much more accessible than it ever was to me. And that's what all of those different projects are about. Of course, the ebook is $10, starting from there all the way up to, of course, IMP at full price runs $2,000, but it's, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 worth of training material if you were to buy them individually. So yeah, it's, and then of course, that's me in this industry. My personal day-to-day, aside from supporting students and preparing material, is spent in my optometric and optical startup. Which is a different interview, I think.
Okay, very cool. Well, I really, really appreciate you coming on and doing an interview with me. You gave me a lot of food for thought in the interview, and I'm sure that others who watch this will have the same experience and be able to take away a lot from this. And so if you want to learn more from Ian, he's a wealth of knowledge. He's very good at internet marketing, and his team is very passionate about teaching you how to start and grow an internet marketing business. Definitely stop by FIMP, First Time Internet Marketing Profits, if you are first time or you're starting out. And if you are more intermediate to advanced, then definitely take a look at Internet Marketing Project, right? Internet Marketing Project.
Yep.
So yeah, and Internet Marketing Project, I have to say some things that are in there. One of my favorite parts is about the conversion optimization. I think you spent hours on that inside of the course. You also talked about ranking local sites, and like you talked about that business model. You talked about your experience with e-commerce and drop shipping. You pretty much explained that to where I could start an e-commerce business. You also talked about manufacturing and sourcing your own products, domestic versus abroad. And then you do like live things where you share just wisdom that you've learned over the years. So I think it's a lot of value in there. So definitely, if you're intermediate to advanced, definitely check that out.
Well, thank you so much. And if you have trouble finding any of it, you're welcome to email me and my team at any time. My email's Ian, which is IAN, at stoppingscams.com. Some of it can be, you know, as opposed to many other product publishers out there, we're just really passionate about helping people. So it's sometimes some of that stuff can be kind of hard to find as far as the links. So if you are interested, feel free to drop us an email, and we'd be happy to help out.
Awesome.
And of course, it's on Tiffany's site too. She's given us a kind review, so you can check that out as well.
Yeah, definitely check out my review. It originally wasn't kind, but then Ian made some bomb changes, and I can't say that like now it's a great program. So yes, definitely check it out either on my site or stop by First Time Internet Marketing Profits or Internet Marketing Projects. So that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this where I do product and service reviews as well as growth strategies to help you grow your business from idea to full-time income and from full-time income to enterprise, then definitely subscribe to this channel and click the bell icon so you can be notified of upcoming videos. That's all I have for this video, and I really hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day. Bye.